Everybody smiles in the same language. A smile, let your light come shining through.
Welcome to the Celebrate Happiness Roadshow podcast. I'm Sandra M., coming to you from Santa Fe, New Mexico, the land of enchantment. I interview people from all parts of the world about what happiness means to them. What are they in love with? In each episode, we'll give you a key to happiness to include in your life, and of course, we'll play a happy tune from my live Celebrate Happiness Roadshow.
A smile doesn't cost you anything.
Welcome to the third season of the Celebrate Happiness Roadshow podcast. And don't forget to catch up on any episodes from seasons 1 and 2 you might have missed. Today we're talking with Debra Denker, Santa Fe-based writer, photographer, and filmmaker, who has been creating media about international environmental, social justice, and peace issues since the late 1970s. Starting in 1986, Debra worked and taught in the healing arts, including energy healing, spiritual counseling, and animal communication with companion animals and wild living ones. She is an ordained graduate of the Healing Light Center Church, where she studied with Reverend Rosalyn Bruyere and served on their faculty for 5 years. As a certified Healing Touch Practitioner in 2002 and as an instructor in 2006, Debra sees clients in private practice in both Santa Fe, New Mexico, and in Alaska. Debra has also taught Healing Touch courses in Tibet and South Africa and is planning to establish a healing center in Vancouver, British Columbia called Rasa Catalyst Healing. In addition, Debra is the author of the cli-fi time travel novel Weather Menders and a novel set in Afghanistan during the 1980s war called Love and War in the Land of Cain, which won first place in the 2022 National Federation of Press Women contest. She has written for diverse publications, including National Geographic, the Los Angeles Times, and The Guardian, and is a longtime member and current board member of the Society of Women Geographers. Debra also is the founder and director of the Global Diversity Film Project, an initiative of Perception International, which makes films in association with her production company, Catalyst Artistic Productions. Her films on Afghanistan and Tibet have been exhibited in many film festivals, and her short films are accessible on YouTube and Vimeo, including Community Garden, New Mexico, South Africa, which screened in the New Mexico Filmmakers Showcase, and a trailer for a film on ancient Hawaiian spirituality, One Breath, One Life. Welcome, Debra, to the Celebrate Happiness Roadshow podcast. I am so excited to talk with you about happiness and why it manifests in your life, and how does it manifest in your life?
Wow, that's a big question. So I would say I'm happiest when I know I'm helping others, not just other humans, but helping nature in some way, or including non-human animals. And I've heard this new term recently about more than human, and that can refer to, cats, dogs, bobcats, rivers, anything like that. So if I feel like I'm doing some kind of useful service, the Sanskrit word for that is seva, then it does make me feel fulfilled. It makes me feel like I'm doing something useful in life.
Isn't that interesting that you feel fulfilled? I love that term, being fulfilled. We all, obviously, we eat and we feel fulfilled, but I think you're talking about something more than that, right? Are you talking spiritually? Are you talking emotionally? Could you elaborate on that?
Yes, I would say all of the above, but especially emotionally and spiritually. And it's kind of hard for me even to separate those two. So, as you know, I do healing touch and other forms of energy healing, and I just feel so wonderful and so loving when I've done a healing touch session on someone, and sometimes they have immediate relief or they immediately feel incredibly relaxed, and sometimes some of the conditions or pain don't go away immediately, but they do feel better. And then when I teach healing touch classes, it's so exciting because often the people in the classes have never done this before. They're not sure if they can do it. And within the first half an hour to an hour, everybody is feeling energy. Everybody is feeling it in themselves. They're feeling it on others. Sometimes the demonstration of just, work with this other partner and see what happens. And people are going like, oh, my wrist was sore for weeks, and now just, you've just done a little healing on it, and it's all better. And so it just is exciting to me to see the people learning and people smiling and knowing that they can then go out and make the world a better place through working with their family, their friends. And a lot of them are nurses. A lot of them work in our various hospitals, and so they use it in their practices as well.
So is healing touch, I've always been fascinated by the idea of healing touch. In other words, you're obviously touching each other, or no? Is it got a lot to do with energy and energy healing?
Yes, it definitely has to do with energy. Most of our techniques are on the body. Some are not. So it has to do with the biofield, which has been measured by science. So you can think of it as, the electromagnetic field that is around the body of any living being. And it's, in many traditions, it's called the aura.
Are you tuning into that, or is the biofield sort of out of alignment?
Yes, you are rebalancing. There's a really excellent book called The Field by Lynn McTaggart, anyway, it goes into the whole thing about the field and the field being out of balance and the field needing to be replenished, because living daily life, even if we're not ill or not in pain, just living daily life, we can get exhausted. Our emotions can exhaust us. Our environment can exhaust us. And so the healer, who can be anyone, connects with the earth, feels the earth energy, feels the universal energy, and allows it to run through them and into others with the intention of being in a healing partnership with that person.
Wow. So that could go on like even in a conversation.
Well, it can. Yeah, just think about, say you're traveling, you're sitting in an airport or you're sitting in an airplane, you start talking to someone, and you're not going to want to be, obviously their counselor or anything, but sometimes you can just listen and you can just hold someone, just hold someone's energy, hold them in light, hold them in love, and just learn to do that automatically. And that's what I would call being a healing presence. And you could do that, again, with humans. You could do that with your houseplants. You can do that with the wild in nature. You can do it with your cats, with your dogs.
So basically we're all healers, or we all have the capacity to do so. We just have to have that mindset, that understanding of ourselves?
Yes, I think that's a good way of putting it. And I think that certainly our companion animals, because I also do animal communication, our companion animals are also very healing to us. Some of my happiest moments in recent times have been waking up, doing a little meditation, and then first my cat Yeshi comes up and just kind of lies on my tummy with his paws on my heart, and then Samadhi, he comes up on the other side and he puts his head under my chin, and they both just purr and purr and purr. And purring is a very healing frequency. They say that in science, they say that it actually can be a bone healing frequency.
Wow.
And of course, also I have dog friends. I don't have my own dogs right now, but when I communicate with dogs, I can feel they don't purr, but there's just their presence. Their presence is incredibly loving. Maybe you've got a small dog or a large dog like my friend's Malamutes, just putting their head against you. You have this communication going back and forth. And, of course, you can also do it over a distance. And distance healing, both with humans and distance communication with animal communication, are based on that idea of the field, the oneness, the fact that we are all one. And that's also a concept in quantum physics.
Right. And I noticed when I was doing your introduction to our podcast today that you did a film on an ancient Hawaiian spirituality that you called One Breath, One Life. Is that going along with the idea that we're all one?
Oh, very much. Yes. The film is on the late traditional healer, Kahu Kawila Clark. And I had originally conceived of doing a longer film, but he unfortunately passed away a year after we did the filming in Hawaii. I am planning on working very soon with my friend and colleague Beverly Singer from Santa Clara Pueblo, who's an incredible filmmaker, and she is going to assist me in editing the footage we have into about a half-hour program, because it's really archival. And really talks about that oneness, and he talks about the breath, and this beautiful custom in Hawaii of greeting each other, forehead to forehead, nose to nose, and breathing with each other.
Isn't that unbelievable? Is that like a long-standing custom coming from tribal?
Yeah, it's an ancient indigenous custom from the Polynesian custom as expressed in Hawaii.
And I know you've done a lot of traveling, so going from Hawaii, and it does say in your introduction about Tibet and South Africa. And so could you talk a little bit about how traveling helps you or gives you pleasure or joy?
Well, there is a saying in Farsi that is, much travel is needed before the raw one is ripened. And so the value of travel with an open heart is exploring and learning from other cultures. Some of us enjoy learning other languages, which I just really love. And different environments, like some of the happiest times have been being in the African wild, in the bush, and I know you got that experience as well. And it's just incredible. It's so magical. And my friend Tara Lumpkin, who founded Voices for Biodiversity, which I'm the senior editor of on a volunteer basis, she and I had the chance to go to South Africa in 2009, and she was like a little kid. She was like, oh my gosh, look at the giraffes, look at the zebras, look at the lions, And that's the way, it's just, it's an awe. It's a childlike awe that I think we feel. And my mother started me traveling early, and she even took me in 1969 when I was a young teenager. She took me across what was then the Soviet Union, and Eastern Europe. So we landed in Germany, went through what was then East Germany to West Berlin, and then back in Poland, what was then Soviet Russia, and Romania, Bulgaria. And what she said, she wasn't a socialist per se, but she just said part of it's our heritage, our Slavic heritage, but she says people are not responsible for their governments. They can't help, what choices their governments make or what the systems are. And we're all one. We all have the same heart. We all want the same things. We, on a really basic level, we just want to be happy, to have family, to have friends, to have maybe cats and dogs or other pets, to have joy, to have music, to have dance, to have enough food to eat, to have, if possible, work that is full. Again, I'll use that word, fulfilling. And we all want the same thing, and that's whether we're talking about someone living in a village in Africa or Thailand or in Bali or in currently in any place, or whether you're talking about a big city in North America or Europe.
Join Sandra M. for her live performance of the Celebrate Happiness Roadshow, a toast to love and happiness in life, an uninhibited musical adventure guaranteed to awaken your happiness vibe. Celebrate with upbeat rhythms, love songs, and fun stories, some told by you in the audience. Sandra's musical guest and accompanist, Todd Lowry, sings his hopeful and happy originals. To book Sandra M. and the Celebrate Happiness Roadshow, email sandra@sandramcknight.com. Celebrate happiness with Sandra M.
So do you have any thoughts? I know that you're really widely traveled and have seen people in rural Africa and Thailand, etc. Do you have any thoughts on how we can bring the concept that we're all one into places like big cities in America, for instance, and in Europe and so forth, where that doesn't seem to, people are not interdependent, they don't seem to need each other, or they don't seem to even feel that they connect?
That's a really good question, and one that I have been on a learning curve about, because a very good friend of mine who I've known for almost 50 years, who actually is of Indian descent from Africa, came to the UK as a refugee as a small child. She's radically honest with me, and sometimes in recent years she had just said, you don't look at people. You just kind of, look down, and you kind of mutter and mumble sometimes. And so it was kind of critical the way she expressed it. But I started thinking about it, and after spending 4 months in Canada last year, in Vancouver area, where they say 92% of Canadians think other Canadians are really good people. And at this point, we have a ways to go in the U.S. because supposedly only, I think it was something like 47%, it was under 50%, think well of their fellows. So what I've been doing very consciously is making a point to look into people's eyes, chat with people when you're in line at the grocery store or Costco or wherever, and look at the cashiers and chat with them, and not just a meaningless transactional conversation like, how are you? Oh, fine. How are you? It's not like that. I mean, sometimes it's, wow, I'm here. I'm doing my best. And maybe they'll say the same thing of, oh, well, I know what you mean. And sometimes, an honest answer is not a negative answer. Sometimes, honestly, it's just being honest. And in Buddhism, for example, in Tibetan Buddhism, they teach us not to deny some of the emotions that comes up that we'll call negative or painful emotions, so grief or anger or fear or anxiety, but just let them arise and then they dissolve. If you look at them and just observe them and say, this is interesting. I'm experiencing a lot of anxiety right now, and maybe this other person is as well, and it just begins to dissolve. And then you get into that more peaceful place of that, the volition, the choice of creating at least a moment of happiness by doing what's right in front of you. And again, it's whether you're cooking something you love or preparing food for your cat or dog or interacting with them, going for a walk with your dog or listening to the rain or sitting out in the sun, whatever it is. It is making that choice and not beating yourself up if you only have 5 minutes of that and then you fall back into, whatever else you're feeling. But I believe, and I've been practicing this, getting better at it, making that choice over and over and over again throughout the day. So I believe in making the choice to let go of the painful emotions and to recenter into the peaceful emotions and just dissolve the painful emotions and go back to choosing peace, just like the monks, the Buddhist monks who recently did the peace walk from Texas to Washington, D.C., and it is a matter of just constantly choosing. And again, I think it's very important not to beat ourselves up if we're not constantly in a state of happiness or peace. Just we kept returning to it. And for me, one of the things that has worked is focusing on gratitude and doing the list of 100 things to be grateful for. And it's not something you do once. It's something you can do, as needed. You can do it every few months. You can do it every week because it may change. Maybe a lot of the things will be repeats, but sometimes it's just, that chocolate bar that I just ate, or the fact that I did something healthy for myself and I took a supplement, or I exercised, or I did yoga.
Mm-hmm. So I have this statement, from what I'm hearing from you, is that people oftentimes don't realize that they have the choice, that if you're living in a place where you're not feeling happy, you're upset, you're overwhelmed, etc., people forget that they're able to make a choice. And so I hear you saying that we have to keep thinking and being mindful as we go through our day that we can choose how we react to things. We can choose gratitude. Am I right on that?
Yeah, I think that is really true. I mean, there are exceptions in life when people are living in a war zone or people, but it's interesting about even people who have very few resources can be incredibly generous. I remember when I was covering the refugees and the war in Afghanistan in the 1980s, and I went to a refugee camp, and they offered me eggs and spinach, and that was such a big thing for them because they were living on rations. And according to their culture, you can never, just like the native cultures here in the Southwest, never refuse an offer of food. That is a great insult if you do that. So you just graciously accept, even if you're thinking, oh my gosh, and you don't offer them money for it, but maybe you find another way. Maybe there's a refugee agency you can donate to, or there's in different cultures, there's different ways of giving back so that there's always an energy exchange going on.
Right. So we're back to the concept of energy. It's a healing. Yes, it's healing to offer each other, because food really is energy, right?
Yeah, everything. In some way, we can say energy is all there is. We can also say love is all there is. There's songs about that, right? And so in a way, we can define energy as the energy of love and the energy of light and the energy of breath, which is a spiritual teaching that I have received from various places. So when you're breathing and you're breathing in love and you're breathing in light, and you're transforming some of the not so great feelings that might be going on in you, and then you're just breathing it out. So you're breathing love and light and energy constantly in and out and in and out. And I think that breathing processes are key to so many things. I mean, on just the very physical level, it activates the vagus nerve and brings us into the parasympathetic state. So it's not a big part of most Western culture. Like when you think about, I don't know, playing tennis or soccer or football, yeah, you warm up, but you're not, although probably some great athletes are doing breathing practices, whereas in a lot of other cultures, breath is very central. And so, for example, Karila had taught us is a 7-7-7 breath, and yet you don't count, you get beyond counting. It's more like when we'd be on the beach in Hawaii and we would just hear the waves coming in and out. And so you're just kind of matching, you're breathing in, holding, breathing out, and it just becomes this rhythm of doing it, and then you stop counting and you're in that rhythm.
Yes. I'm doing it as you're talking. That's it. So I wanted to bring up another subject that I know that you are basically a novelist and have written 2 novels. And I'd love you to talk a little bit about how that manifests happiness in the world, or gratitude. How you feel about when you're writing, and how do you use subjects, etc.
Well, I think that you can almost say they're channeled in a way, meaning that I just sort of tune into, it's almost like another world, and the characters just sort of appear. And like in Weather Menders, my cli-fi or climate fiction time travel novel, I didn't know I was going to have a talking cat. And then the character of Georgie, the little gray cat, appears on page 1 talking to the character of Tara, the 96-year-old anthropologist at Stonehenge, who came from Taos, and so she's part Taos Pueblo, part Hispanic, and part Anglo, and became an anthropologist in her life and had all of these adventures and ended up with her step-great-granddaughter, Leona, meeting time travelers at Stonehenge in 2050, right? And so it just evolved from there. And my Afghanistan novel, Love and War in the Land of Cain, that also just evolved partly from my own experiences as a journalist and a character who was not me, but who had some of my being and thoughts in her, different background, different experiences. So I love the writing process, and I have to say, for me, the easiest way to do it is to go on a retreat, which I can do at home, but it's harder. I like to just go off somewhere, turn off all the phones, any kind of phones, don't go on the internet for a number of days. And so Weather Menders, I wrote most of it in a lovely seaside hotel in Oregon, Newport, Oregon, called the Sylvia Beach Hotel, which is a literary hotel. It has no Wi-Fi and it has cats. And so it was, I would write a couple of hours at a time. And my mother was still living, so I did check in with her, on the phone first thing every morning, and then I would shut off the phone. But it was a real discipline for me. But it's the joy of creativity, and that's why I can't imagine what a writer would ever use AI for. It just, why would you outsource your thoughts and your characters and the joy of writing and your own creativity? Why would you outsource it to an algorithm that is really nothing more than a bunch of zeros and ones?
Well, yes, I don't think that, I love the concept joy of creativity. So I think our listeners would be very interested to hear more about, because I feel we can create our own life, basically. And so if we go from that point of view of creating your life, as opposed to just whatever happens to you, you deal with it. No, you create what happens to you. You actually, as a creator in life, there's great joy, there's great happiness, because you are making decisions all the time around how you feel, your worldview, etc. So I'd love you to tell me a little bit more about the joy of creativity.
Well, it's interesting because, when I'm writing, And that's whether I'm writing a blog for my cli-fi blog, or whether I'm writing another novel, or writing a story for Voices for Biodiversity about, the natural world and animals and whatever, and biodiversity. There's just an excitement for me about the use of language. And I think in some ways, there is that idea that we're always, co-creating, that there are affirmations we can do. And the key to those affirmations is to feel a sense of gratitude. And then we give it over, because really we're empowered but not in control. And there's 8 billion humans alone interacting, and hundreds of billions of sentient beings interacting, and that's just on this planet. And so we have to remember that, and at the same time, it's also choosing our responses. And again, feeling forgiveness for ourselves. Self-forgiveness is a Buddhist concept, because sometimes I fall short, and it's like, I was pretty rude to that customer service agent. And just thinking, I didn't get my way right away, and it wasn't expected. And then I'm just thinking, you don't always have the opportunity to go and apologize to that person. So, I just resolved to do better. And I think that's all we can do, is resolve to, the kindness is of value. Empathy is one of the most important values. And in our current society, there is a strain of thought that is anti-empathy, but I really think they're quite irrelevant, and that most of us are empathic, kind, loving beings. And,
who are under tremendous stress most of the time. I do face so many people, and then their kindness and their empathy and their compassion is put to a more stringent test. If life was not so stressful for whatever reasons, I think, it would be easier to be kind and compassionate to others. But again, it all comes down to a choice, doesn't it? I mean, we can remain mindful and peaceful and choose to be kind to other people. Like, just spend a whole day saying, okay, for this day I'm going to be kind to other people and to myself, right? And Go ahead.
I was just saying self-forgiveness is really important, because those of us who aspire to be kind or loving, enlightened, to be healers, whatever, to do good in the world, we're not always going to, every single day, measure up. There's going to be frustrating technology things that are happening. There's going to be extreme weather happening. There's going to be, we're here in life, and we're going to hear sad things about losses, about family and friends, and so we need to just keep responding. Like, again, I'll use the example of the monks, and when you think about, one of the monks was injured, and I believe that he even had to have his leg amputated because of a car accident, and yet he rejoined, even though he couldn't walk with them anymore. And Aloka, the peace dog, and Aloka, of course, means light or flame in Sanskrit. And so you think of the peace dog and his inspiration of others, and that he came off the streets of, what is the name now? Calicut, which is the more modern name of Calcutta. And, he was a street dog, and now he has this amazing life with all of these monks and meeting literally thousands of people. So that's a pretty enlightened being as far as I'm concerned.
What a wonderful way to end our conversation, with the monks walking for peace in America and this marvelous peace dog. And is there any last comments you might want to leave us with?
I would just say, get out your piece of paper now and write your 100 things to be grateful for. That'll change your whole being and your whole attitude and bring you into a space of love and happiness.
Thank you. Thank you, Debra.
Thank you so much, Sandra. It's so great to be here, and thanks for your good questions.
Weekly Key to Happiness 16. Explore meditation. Meditation can involve movement, focus, spirituality, or a combination of all three, and it doesn't have to be complicated. It can be as simple as sitting quietly for 5 minutes every day, or deep breathing exercises done on a regular basis. Newsflash! Please sign up for your copy of our Keys to Happiness at sandramcknight.com. Thank you for tuning into Season 3 of the Celebrate Happiness Roadshow podcast. And if you enjoyed the conversation, please help spread the word by sharing with your friends and family. And don't forget to catch up on any episodes from Seasons 1 and 2 that you might have missed. Before we go, I'd like to thank today's guest, Debra Denker, for sharing her happiness story. And to share your happiness story on the Celebrate Happiness Roadshow podcast, send an email to sandra@sandramcknight.com.
Turn your smile on, you can't go wrong. You'll find that love is all around.